The concept of the second wine began in Bordeaux in the 18th century, and then it was revived in the 20th century by Chateau Lafite. In Bordeaux, where the concept originated, these chateaus have their Grand Vin, which is their flagship wine, their most prestigious wine they make every year. Their second wine usually isn't as of high quality, but it's supposed to be good, and it's a lot less expensive. Some chateaus now even make third and even fourth wines. There's several ways you can get a second wine. The first is during assemblage or the blending. That's when the chateau puts their Grand Vin together. There's leftover wine, so what happens? It gets bottled under the second label. Second wines can also be made from younger vines that aren't producing concentrated fruit to make the Grand Vin. Second wines are usually made from the same varieties, although in different proportions as the Grand Vin, with the same winemaker, same winemaking technique. They usually have a lot less new oak. When you have concentrated fruit, when you have new oak, you have this beautiful polymerization of tannins that feels pleasant in the mouth and helps the wine last a long time in the bottle. Second wines are usually fruitier and a little bit more approachable than the Grand Vin. I usually really like them, especially in great vintages, because you get the signature of the chateau or the brand at a fraction of the price. Although I have to say, second wine prices are rising rapidly. The concept of the second wine has permeated throughout the wine world, especially with different properties that focus on Bordeaux varieties: Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, Carmenere, and Malbec. However, you see that concept with other wines too, like in Montalcino, you have the Brunello di Montalcino is the first wine, the Grand Vin. Then you have the second wine, which is the Rosso di Montalcino. Here today, I have 4 sets of wine. 1 set is from Bordeaux, and the other 3 sets are from around the world. These are all fantastic wines, some of them pretty iconic within their own countries. All the Grand Vins here are over $100. We're going to see if the cheaper second wine stacks up to them. You ready? I'm ready. Let's get tasting. Serious Wine's gonna taste on my Gabriel Glas Gold Edition. These are hand blown. I haven't used them in a long time. I don't have an affiliate link because these are always sold out, but hey, I want to use them because these are some nice wines. I'm gonna taste 1 set at a time and then do the reveal after I taste the 2 wines. Fair enough? As always, I did know what these wines were beforehand because I have to put this tasting together. However, I did have somebody mix them up for me after I Coravin them. Wines number 1 and 2. I wouldn't be surprised if I prefer some of the second wines in this tasting because, I don't know, especially with Bordeaux varieties, when Bordeaux grapes are a little bit young, they can be quite heavy. A lot of times Grape Bordeaux needs, for me, at least 10 years to show well in the bottle. That's why the beauty of the second wine, you can drink them now before the Grand Vins start to mature. They can be the cellar defender. I love that term. My friend John from Attorney Sam came up with that. Let's start with wine number 1 here. One's got plenty of dark fruit, cassis, mineral flavors, a black plum, a black cherry type note, a little bit of mocha. Smells fabulous. We're starting off swinging. Man, this is concentrated. This has length. Tangy, like mandarin peel type flavor, like almost orange peel in the mid palate. The tannins are extremely round, extremely supple. Usually second wines, the tannins are a little bit softer. I'm still tasting that wine. I mean, that's a hell of a second wine, or I don't know. Let's start out. Let's go number 2 here. 2 has similar nose. It's not as powerful, not as intense. It's almost like when you have a fresh cut flower versus a flower that was cut and put in a vase for a few days. This is similar flavors. It's just not as intense. I wonder if these are heavily focused on Merlot. Hold on. Has some violets come out. Still, you get the black cherry, the black cassis, mocha. That's also a hell of a wine. These are really good. Number 2 feels a little bit lighter on the palate. Like number 1's almost like heavy cream, where number 2 is like almost whole milk type feeling. But I don't know, when I go back to 1, damn, these are good. Whatever producer this is, these wines are extremely close. Man. I have to say here, whatever the second wine is extraordinary. The only difference here, left feels a little more fuller bodied. My left, you're right, feels a little more fuller bodied. But still, the length here, the flavors, the tannin structure are outstanding. I'm going to say, I mean, these are really excellent wines to start. I'm going to say 95. 93 plus. And you know what? I actually might prefer right now to drink number 2. Let's go with one here. I think it's the Grand Vin. Let's take a look here. Let's see how, let's see what my palate says. Number 1 is the Grand Vin. This is the Clos Apalta 2019. This comes in at $160. 70% Carmenere, 18% Merlot, 4% Petit Verdot, 8% Cabernet Sauvignon. This is from Chile. I love Clos Apalta. I've always liked the style because they use a lot of Carmenere, which is unique. Not a lot of Cabernet Sauvignon. That's really good, but you know what? The second wine is also excellent. This is the 2019 Le Petit Clos Apalta. This comes in at $49, so less than a third of the price. This is 49% Carmenere, 30% Merlot, 18% Cabernet Sauvignon, 3% Petit Verdot. 93 plus I gave this. I know this ended up in like James Suckling's top 100 wines of last year. This is outstanding. This traditionally is one of the more impressive Chilean wines I've ever tasted, along with old vintages of Don Melchor. Although I have to say, South America, I'm fairly weak in. I'm not as strong as other countries or other continents. It's so funny because a month ago, my friend Amanda Barnes sent me a copy of her book, The South American Wine Guide, Wines of Uruguay, Chile, Brazil, Bolivia, and Peru. Hardcover. This is excellent. I'm going to link her website below. It's colorful, got great pictures. Does have this property in it too. I have to say to the Clos Apalta team that the Le Petit Clos is outstanding. So in this case, Le Petit Clos. But hold on to this and let it cellar. Man, that was a good start. When I do blind tastings like this where I reveal as I taste, what happens is towards the end, I start to know maybe what kind of wines I would have left. In this case, it kind of doesn't matter because I'm just tasting the difference between the two wines. So it is what it is. You can only do so much when you have one person. Let's start out with the next set. That was a good start. Wine number 1. Wine 1, it definitely smells like a younger wine. What happens in second wines, they're usually younger because they're released earlier. The Grand Vins are usually held back a little bit. However, in the case some of these sets, I have the same vintage, which is kind of weird. It's just what I had sent and what I had laying around. One smells young. I definitely get some rhubarb, cherry, strawberry flavors, a little bit of pepper type notes. I like there's a little bit of weediness in here. Mineral, a little bit leaner in style than the Clos Apaltas. The Clos Apaltas were pretty darn full. Clos Apalta was awesome, by the way. Let's go with wine 2. 2, I definitely think this is going to be the Grand Vin. 1 just smells a little bit younger. 2, it's a little bit riper. I smell new oak, definitely. I smell the wood. It's not too much, but you definitely get it. You get like this vanilla, this pan gris toastiness. This has more red fruit. This is all black fruit, black cherry, black plum. Cigar, tobacco. I wonder if this is the Bordeaux. This definitely has, number 2, definitely has a little bit more intensity. You get a little bit more power on the back end. Let's go to 1 here. These are both really good though. You know, I have to say, when I'm in the chateau, when I'm in chateaus and I'm tasting the difference and it's not blind, it's a little bit easier because in your mind you think, oh yeah, the second wine's not going to be as good. This is a little bit harder. This, the only factors I'm going on here is number 1, just smells a little bit younger, and 2, has a little more intensity on the back end, and it's just got that feeling in the mouth. I don't even know. It's almost like when you meet somebody that you really like and you can't explain why you're attracted to them. It's that feeling. That's why I think that this is the Grand Vin. Still gonna go 91. I'm gonna go 94 here on the right. I think it's an outstanding wine. Let's take a look here. So I'm gonna say second wine, Grand Vin. You ready? Let's hope I'm right. Still very, very, very good wines here. This is, I got it right. This is The Quinta de Vale Meão. This is the Meandro de Vale Meão from the Douro 2019. This second wine comes in at $25. This is a blend of 44% Touriga Nacional, 35% Touriga Franca, 15% Tinta Joris, which is known as Tempranillo in Spain, 4% Tinta Barroca, and 2% Alicante Boucher. This is regularly one of the great second wines, great value wines in Portugal that you can actually find in Portugal. You can actually find it for under $15, I think, and they haven't raised their prices. I'm surprised. This, to me, I thought maybe was Bordeaux. The second one I thought was Bordeaux. This is more red fruited. So there's the Grand Vin here, 94. This is the Quinta do Vale Meão from the Douro 2019. This is just a legendary producer, legendary family, had their hands in the legendary Barcavalia, which is like the Vega Sicilia of Spain. The Quinta do Vale Meão is a great red in its own right. I think this is my favorite red wine in the Douro, dry wine, and maybe one of my favorite reds in Portugal. This comes in at $149. This has been rising in price. Got a 100-point score a couple of vintages ago, or maybe the 2020. This is 60% Touriga Franca, 35% Touriga Nacional, 3% Tinta Barroca, 2% Tinta Joris, also known as Tempranillo. I've been to the estate 3 times. It's in the Douro Superior, which the Douro is the most spectacular wine region. In terms of my subjective opinion in the world, it's humongous. The vineyards are so steep. You're working with all these traditional, unique varieties, and I think that is a heck of a wine. I gave 94 points blind. In the past, I've given even like 96, 97 not blind. I think it's an outstanding wine. Although when you're blind tasting, I feel like you are a little bit more critical than usual. In the past, the reputation was second wine sometimes could be pretty unexciting, but with improved technology in the vineyards and the winemaking, you can see they're super close. Although I have to say, even though we're talking 3 points off, when you see scores a lot of times, they're logarithmic. 91 to 94 doesn't seem like a lot, but as you go up in score, it kind of goes up pretty drastically, usually. I wish it wasn't that way, but that's generally what you see how it is. Let's move on to the next set. All right, set number 3. Number 1, I love this. This is the most tobacco out of any of the wines so far. This almost has like a strawberry rhubarb with cherry flavor. Black cherry, so you have the red fruit, you have the dark fruit as well. The tobacco really comes out. It's beautiful. This has a brilliant spike of acidity. That's very, very, very good. Tannins are supple, round, they kind of coat the palate. That's really good. Let's start up with number 2. 2, also similar to 1, except it isn't as explosive. You still get the tobacco, more black cherry type flavors, a little mocha. A little bit of weediness, which I like. These are all really clean wines, though. More tannins here in number 2. These definitely have the most acidity out of the first 2 sets. Let me go back here. 1's just more concentrated. 2, what happens is I really enjoy it, but the fruit kind of falls a little bit short on the finish. It's still an excellent wine. Here's the biggest spread. I'm going to go number 1, 96, and number 2, I'm going to go 90 plus. I still think it's an excellent wine. I'm going to tell you, most people are going to enjoy the Clos Apaltas because they're round and suave. This is more my style of wine. There's brighter acidity. It's a little bit sharper. There is a little bit more tannin here. All these wines here are meant to be laid down. I think although the Clos Apalta are the ones that are the most approachable so far. 96 points for number 1, 90 plus for number 2. Let's go to the third set. I think that number 1 right here is the Grand Vin. Oh, 96 points. I'm excited to see because that's a heck of a score. This is the Domaine de Chevalier 2019 from Petit Clos. This comes in at $110, 65% Cabernet Sauvignon, 30% Merlot, 5% Petit Verdot. Legendary producer. I prefer Petit Clos in the Bordeaux. It's on the left bank. Cabernet Sauvignon dominated, but I like Petit Clos because there are great whites there as well. This is a Grand Cru Class A, so this is a different classification from the 1855 classification. Most people, when they think of Margaux, Lafite Rothschild, Mouton Rothschild, it's a different classification system. I think these wines are exceptional value for money. I actually might prefer their white a little bit more than their red. So I was right on the second wine here, 90 plus. Although this is one of the great values of second wines in Bordeaux. This is the Espirit de Chevalier 2019. Same vintage, this is just what I got sent. This comes in at 35 bucks. So again, a third of the price, 50% Cabernet Sauvignon, 45% Merlot, 5% Petit Verdot. That I like. Domaine de Chevalier, they're just improving drastically in recent vintages. 2019 is a great vintage in Bordeaux, and that's a great wine. My favorite so far. I love the acidity. Okay, the last set here. Let's start out with wine number 1. This is a great tasting, and I'm surprised. I thought it might be tripped up. Well, let's see. I still have one more set to go, because second wines, I find a lot of pleasure, but again, when they're putting these wines together, when they're blending them, wine is a consumer product after all. Producers usually know what they're doing, and they can't make the second wine better than the first wine because it would ruin the reputation of the property. Let's start out with wine number 1 here. Also, beautiful nose. This set here, wine 1, this is the earthiest. Set 3, the Domaine de Chevalier, that was the most tobacco-like flavors. Lots of earthiness, a little bit of burnt rubber even. Black fruits, it's kind of weedy and dirty in a way. It's a little bit more vegetal, which I kind of like. Gravel type flavors. Wow. This has, and I mean it, this has strawberry rhubarb pie for days. My grandmother, my late grandmother, love her to death, made homemade strawberry rhubarb pies all the time. This literally tastes like strawberry rhubarb pie, which I sometimes can get in Bordeaux. I like that a lot, mixed with the earth. Although, I don't think this is the Grand Vin. Let's move on to 2 here. 2 has, it's a little denser. I can smell a little bit more oak. Again, this is like, 1 was quite earthy. 2 is not as earthy. The black fruit comes through with the tobacco. And the earth flavors is pretty, it smells nice. This has the same similar strawberry rhubarb pie type flavor, but it's also if you mixed a little of blackberry jam on the back end. It's a bit longer, a little weightier. Let me see here. Hold on a second. I got to top up with what I have left. I'm on a roll here. I got to look good for you guys. Number 2 just has a little more intensity. These, again, might be the closest, even closer than the Clos Apaltas. Really close. I'm going to go... The strawberry rhubarb pie is just sucking me in. I'm going to go 93, 95-ish. Both these wines are outstanding. Classic in style. Again, more my style. A lot of people are going to like the Clos Apalta for the big, they're a little bit bigger. This is more kind of traditional Bordeaux, although it's not Bordeaux. Let's see if I got it right. I guess if I have that score, they're not as close as the second wine of Clos Apalta and the Clos Apalta, but they're pretty darn close. Let's go here. I think 1 is the second wine of the first set. Let's take a look, shall we? Let's take a look, shall we? And the first one, I've messed up. This is the Tenuta San Leonardo 2018. This is from Trentino in northern Italy. This comes in at 100 to 120 bucks, 60% Cabernet Sauvignon, 30% Carmenere, 10% Merlot. This is one of the iconic wines of Italy created by Giacomo Takis, the same creator of Sassicaia. San Leonardo, I've been to the estate several times, done some verticals. This is a wine that hasn't changed its style throughout history. I mean, this comes in at 13% alcohol. I know I talked to the owner before when I was there last time. He said there were some times, and especially in the era where there was the Parker era of bigger red wines, where San Leonardo, it was harder to sell those wines. Now, these are classic. I love these wines, and they age beautifully. This is the current release, and these wines age really well, probably be better with time. They make a second and a third wine. I like the second wine the most here. And it's so funny because the second wine isn't really their second wine. This is the San Leonardo Villa Gresti. This is 90% Merlot, 10% Carmenere. This comes in at 40 bucks, 2019. This is where it's a little bit different because this is completely dominated by Cabernet Sauvignon, 60%. This is 90% Merlot. maybe that's why it was a little more concentrated, round, and plush. $40 versus 100, 120 bucks, so it's a little bit less than half the price. I have tasted older vintages of the Vale Gresti, and it's phenomenal. I don't treat it like a second wine. So in terms of value for money, I think the Meandro, you're not going to beat it. My favorite second wine in the tasting, it looked like, was the Vale Gresti or the Clos Apolta. And then my favorite Grand Vin was the Domaine de Chevalier. I guess Bordeaux, look at what happens. So tell me, what do you think about second wines versus Grand Vins? Do you have any favorites? What do you think about this tasting? I'd love to hear. Drop it in the comments below.